The 6 red-haired beasts did not evade in the slightest and pressed their attack without hesitation. The towering mountains smashed down upon them, and each of them hurled out a fist to meet it head-on. Origin power surged like furious tides, and cracks spiderwebbed across the mountain's surface. Yet it stubbornly refused to collapse. Pang! 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 Blow after blow struck their bodies. They staggered from the impact, yet only swayed for an instant before baring their fangs and lunging forward once more with savage ferocity. Such formidable defenses! Ling Han inclined his head in acknowledgement. Though inferior to his iron sheet body, such resilience was already astonishing. For spiritual pedestal tier existences to temper their physiques to this degree was something heartbreakingly rare. Humph, nothing impressive. The man who had been assaulted gave a cold snort, sliding backward as his robes fluttered. His sword rose once more, and 7 streaks of sword chi burst forth like shooting stars. Let's assist! The others had also discerned that the red-haired beast's cultivation was not overwhelming, and their courage swelled accordingly. Yet at that very moment, the 6 red-haired beasts erupted in a blaze of crimson radiance. They charged straight through the man's sword chi, passing it as though it were mere mist, and in the blink of an eye appeared before him. 5 of them seized his forelimbs and head, while the last clamped onto his torso. Pooh! Before the horrified eyes of all present, the 5 red-haired beasts exerted force in unison, and his forelimbs and head were torn cleanly from his body. Blood sprayed outward, as though the heavens themselves had been dyed scarlet. Too savage, too ghastly. Everyone stood petrified. Such a gruesome spectacle was beyond their endurance. Pa! 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 The 6 red-haired beasts casually flung aside the head and limbs in their grasp, then locked onto another target and rushed forward as one. Suppress them together! Voices rang out in panic. They would not allow themselves to be picked apart one by these 6 fiends. Battle erupted in full fury. The humans held superiority in numbers and possessed greater martial prowess, yet the red-haired beasts resembled immortal demons. Whether pierced by sword or cleaved by saber, not a single drop of blood spilled forth, as though they were nothing but puppet constructs, animated by some sinister force. Furthermore, they possessed a peculiar technique. When their bodies shimmered with crimson light, they could disregard origin power entirely, passing through attacks as though intangible, plunging everyone into grave difficulty. They clearly outnumbered them and were clearly stronger, yet they were driven into a miserable struggle by only 6 red-haired beasts. Strange. What kind of ability is this? Ling Han murmured, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Could this be yet another peculiar trait of beings from the God realm? Master Han, shall we lend a hand? Guang Yuan inquired. Help and be cautious. Ling Han gave a nod. Yes. Guang Yuan immediately shot forward like an arrow loosed from a bow, while Yu Kai scratched his head and muttered, Strange. Why should I listen to this fellow? Even as he spoke, he too rushed into battle, fighting spirit blazing. Ling Han did not join them. Instead, he stood watch, observing with hawk-like vigilance. Should Guang Yuan or Yu Kai encounter peril, he would intervene at once. For now, he sought to study these bizarre red-haired beasts, creatures he had never before encountered. As his gaze swept across the battlefield, astonishment flashed across his face. A startling transformation was occurring within the scattered remains, the torn pulps of flesh. Strands of crimson hair sprouted from the bloodied meat, and as though endowed with life, the severed head, hands, and feet wriggled toward the torso. In short order, the 6 fragments assembled themselves, reconstituting into a complete human body. Now cloaked entirely in red hair, another red-haired beast stood born. Lightning seemed to streak across Ling Han's mind as a conjecture took shape. Could these 6 red-haired beasts be the 6 corpses annihilated earlier? Without hesitation, he dashed forward and unsheathed the demon birthsword, slashing toward one of the beasts. Sword chi swept forth. Red hair was sheared into the air. In an instant, the red-haired beast was shaved clean, revealing beneath it a withered, corpse-like body. Tattered scraps of clothing still clung to it. Luo Heng, a martial artist stammered, his voice trembling. It's Luo Heng. I recognize the tattoo on his hand. Ling Han narrowed his eyes. Indeed, a tattoo adorned the beast's arm. Though faded and obscured, it was still discernible as a ferocious tiger. Shock rippled through the crowd. Luo Heng had entered the second layer first, only to become one of the 6 dried corpses drained by the blood-sucking insects. Why had he now risen as a red-haired beast? Another one! Someone cried out upon spotting a 7th red-haired beast. It had only just staggered to its feet and had not yet joined the fray. Where is Xu Ming's corpse? Another voice quavered. A collective cry burst from the crowd. If dried corpses could transform into red-haired beasts, then what of those torn apart? Could they not also reassemble? What in the world was this place? The dead rose once more, though such existence could hardly be called true resurrection. Ling Han struck again, activating 2 vein-like patterns upon the demon birth sword. He refused to believe that a 10th-tier spirit tool could not slay these monstrosities. Pooh, pooh, pooh. His figure flashed like a phantom. With a single slash, a red-haired beast was cleaved in 2. Yet an eerie sight followed. The 2 halves adhered together once more, fusing seamlessly back into a single body. An undying demon. Ling Han made his decision without hesitation. Head to the 3rd layer. Yue Kaiyu and Guang Yuan did not question him. They immediately leapt onto the steps and charged toward the 3rd layer. Ling Han sheathed the demon birth sword and sprang upward as well. Even Ling Han, whose battle prowess was unparalleled, had chosen retreat. How could the others dare linger? These red-haired beasts could not be killed. Even if someone possessed a spiritual infant-tier law decree, could it truly suppress such horrors? Though Ling Han ascended later than Guang Yuan and Yue Kaiyu, he quickly caught up and overtook them. With a powerful stride, he was the first to enter the 3rd layer. The scenery shifted at once. Before them spread a primeval forest, towering ancient trees stretching skyward. Old vines coiled and intertwined among them, thick as houses. Who knew how many centuries it had taken for them to grow so vast? In the distance, upon a mountain peak, a divine temple stood upright, radiating golden brilliance. Shu, Guang Yuan, and Yue Kaiyu landed behind him, followed by more figures. Yet not a single red-haired beast pursued them, as though each layer was bound by strict and inviolable laws. Ow! A beastly roar echoed from afar, powerful enough to rend the heavens. All were shaken. Even at such distance, the oppressive might within that roar was palpable. It was at least flower blossom tier, perhaps even spiritual infant tier. What was to be done? Below lay red-haired beasts that could not be slain. Above lurked flower blossom and perhaps spiritual infant tier demonic beasts. It was a true dilemma. Ling Han's gaze fixed solely upon the golden divine temple crowning the distant peak. A faint intuition stirred within him. There, perhaps, lay answers. The secrets of this divine temple would be unveiled there. Go! He nodded toward Guang Yuan and Yue Kaiyu. The trio set off, advancing toward the distant temple. The others exchanged glances and shrugged. The mountain did not appear far, yet it was no short journey, and who knew how many dreadful beasts lurked along the way? Let's charge back! That's right. Though the red-haired beasts can't be killed, their strength isn't outrageous. It's better than confronting spiritual infant-tier beasts. Let's retreat. Most turned and fled, while only a handful chose to press onward behind the trio. With the 3 leading the way, if danger arose, they would bear the brunt first. Yet those few were left dumbfounded. Ling Han summoned the golem. The 3 leapt onto its back, and the golem bore them aloft, striding through the air as it carried them straight toward the mountaintop. Translator Reverie Kurisu. How could such a thing be? Those few who had schemed to ride upon Ling Han's coattails and let him shield them from calamity all revealed bitter disappointment. Ling Han possessed a flying treasure, soaring through the skies with ease, while they could only rely upon the strength of their own legs. If peril descended, they would not even have him before them to block the blade or spear. Their thoughts of following him instantly crumbled. Just as they turned about in frustration, 3 figures flashed forth like bolts of lightning. All 3 appeared around 30 years of age, each a man, their auras vast and crushing like mountains pressing down upon the sea. The mere pressure of their presence forced the crowd to bow their heads and lower their gazes, hearts trembling uncontrollably. Flower blossom tier warriors. Respects to Lord Miao, Lord Gu, and Lord Geng. The multitude dropped to one knee in unison, voices filled with reverence. Miao Qixi, Gu Yuanliang, and Geng Jingsheng These were once dazzling names upon the prodigy roll of generations past. Now they had long since stepped into the flower blossom tier, pillars of their respective sects. In time, they might even break into the spiritual infant tier and stand as supreme powers of the northern region. Miao Qi lifted a hand lightly, motioning for the crowd to rise. His gaze, like that of Gu Yuanliang and Gang Jingsheng, was fixed unwaveringly upon the divine temple crowning the mountaintop. "Let us go!" Gu Yuanliang pressed off the ground with a single step, his body drifting upward as though borne by clouds. Miao Qi and Gang Jingsheng followed close behind, ascending into the sky. "Ha ha! Now that 3 flower blossom elites have arrived, even if Ling Han has stumbled upon some treasure, he won't be able to keep it." Someone laughed with malicious delight. "Humph! A mere flower blossom puppet. How could it compare to a true flower blossom warrior? So what if he is a heaven-grade alchemist? Within a mystery realm, no one is obliged to give face. Indeed, as an alchemist, he ought to remain in his furnace room refining pills." Many voices chimed in, each thick with envy and ill will toward Ling Han. Though the rock spirit appeared somewhat dull-witted, and its initial explosive force was not particularly formidable, once it built up speed, it was no slower than a flower blossom tier warrior. In but a few minutes, they reached the summit. The colossal golem descended heavily to the ground, and the 3 leapt down from its body. Though this layer contained various living beings, its space was not vast. While soaring through the air, Ling Han had already swept his divine sense across the surroundings, yet he discovered no stairway leading to a 4th layer. In other words, this was the final level. His conjecture was correct. This last divine temple most likely concealed the true secrets of this place. The golden divine temple towered 30 meters high, its entire structure cast in radiant gold. It resembled the massive temple outside, only reduced tenfold in scale. "Small rock, you take the vanguard." Ling Han patted the rock spirit. Naturally, the rock spirit raised no objection and strode forward at the forefront. The 3 followed closely behind. With a flower blossom tier rock spirit blocking the way ahead, Ling Han possessed sufficient assurance. Should dire peril arise, he could instantly store Guangyuan, Yu Kaiyu, and even the rock spirit away. Unexpectedly, the interior of the divine temple was also forged of golden walls, brilliant and dazzling. Unlike the black temples they had seen before, which were hollow and barren, this place was not empty. Stone pillars stood within, each only a meter tall, their tops shaped like hollow basins. The temple had but a single level, and thus the space within was immense. As they walked inside, the 3 felt themselves exceedingly small beneath the vastness. There were no supporting pillars holding up the ceiling. The structure relied solely upon the 3 walls leaning into one another to bear its weight. Rows upon rows of stone pillars extended inward, converging toward the center of the temple, where a hexagonal object hovered in midair, revolving continuously, an eerie and wondrous sight. What a fragrance! The 3 wrinkled their noses. "Eat!" The rock spirit transmitted a thought to Ling Han, its gaze fixed hungrily upon the stone pillars. "Go on and eat!" Ling Han waved his hand. "But don't overstuff yourself." The rock spirit was instantly overjoyed. It lunged toward a nearby stone pillar. Its head split open as though forming a massive maw, and it bit down upon the basin with a crisp crack. Half the stone basin snapped off, and it began chewing contentedly, savoring each bite. The 3 hurried to the stone pillar closest to the hexagonal object. Within the basin, they saw a trace of milky white liquid pooled at the bottom, from which the astonishing fragrance emanated. "What is this?" Yu Kaiyu asked. Ling Han shook his head. "I do not know either, but I am certain. This is absolute spiritual liquid possessing immense value. So you may all leave now." A cold voice rang out as Miao Qi and the other 2 strode forward in large steps, utterly disregarding Ling Han's status as a heaven-grade alchemist. In the outside world, a heaven-grade alchemist's status indeed surpassed the norm. Yet when treasures were at stake, all relied upon strength. No one would yield a treasure merely because the other was the son of a shattering void-tier elite. The same applied to a heaven-grade alchemist. Ling Han turned to Guangyuan and Yu Kaiyu. "You 2 store away the spiritual liquid." He then waved toward the rock spirit. "Small rock. Come, time to fight." The rock spirit was somewhat reluctant, having been eating with relish. Yet, having acknowledged Ling Han as its master, it obeyed instinctively. It shot a fierce glare at Miao Qi-Si and the others. These three had interrupted its delicious feast, and rage surged within it. Observing the mysterious patterns upon the rock spirit's body, Miao Qi-Si and the others exclaimed in astonishment, "A puppet!" They naturally recognized those patterns as formation inscriptions. From the aura it exuded, they could sense a power that they dared not underestimate. Master Ling, you may be an alchemical genius revered by the world, but since you have entered this historic site to contend for fortune, you must possess the awareness of a martial artist. Gu Yuanliang declared, "If you force my hand, I shall show no mercy." Ling Han's lips curved into a faint smile. "Is that so? Stop!" As Guang Yuan and Yue Kaiyu produced a jade bottle to collect the spiritual liquid from the basin, Miao Qi-Si and the others could no longer restrain themselves. They struck out in unison, unleashing massive hands of origin power to prevent the liquid from being taken. Aang! The rock spirit roared furiously and charged forward. Ling Han drew forth the demon birth sword and activated the thunder battle armor, slashing toward the three enormous hands of origin power. Pu sword chi swept forth. Ling Han cleaved apart the three massive hands of origin power, preventing them from striking Yue Kaiyu and Guang Yuan, yet he was only at the second layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Even shielded by the thunder battle armor, he could not fully withstand the terrifying shock. Wah! He spat out a mouthful of blood. It was like the Three Lives corpse casket. Even a shattering void tier elite might fail to crush the casket itself. Yet if a heaven tier warrior lay within, the shockwaves alone would reduce him to pulp. Blocking an attack directly and neutralizing its impact were entirely different matters. Unexpectedly, Ling Han's spirit soared. With the thunder battle armor's protection, he could endure such an impact. So long as he was not killed in a single blow, the recovery power of the indestructible Heaven's Scroll would restore him instantly. Of course, the cultivation of the iron sheet body was paramount. Were it another in his place, even with the thunder battle armor, they would suffer grievous injuries. Flower Blossom tier experts were simply too formidable. Then let us battle, Ling Han declared.